Welcome back, everybody. Chef David here from the NuWave Studio Test Kitchen. We're going to finish up this amazing series on snacks for the Super Bowl that you can prepare quickly for your family and friends. So this one, we're going to use our amazing skillet. If you grew up with a skillet with your grandma or your mom and you had one of these, we have completely reinvented it. That's what NuWave does. Dorlon technology, non-stick, chemical-free. Most importantly, first company ever to make it digital. They're all analog with a dial, you don't know what temperature. This one, I can do the exact temperature within 5 degrees. More importantly, once I make this dish, which is gonna be called Queso Fundido, classic Mexican cheese and chorizo dip, I can hold it at the perfect temperature for the whole game, so it's always warm and it's always safe. All right, let's get started real quick. So we're gonna go with, it's not super traditional, my recipe, but it's not a bad one. I'm gonna use some smoked bacon from Indiana, okay? I like the flavor, I like the fat, I like what it does. And then, real quick, I'm gonna do a little red onion in this, which we're gonna finely dice. And I'm gonna do a jalapeno because what goes better with beer on a Super Bowl than something spicy. So real quick, we're just gonna go right down. I want a small dice. It doesn't have to be restaurant perfect like we do sometimes in the restaurants, but it does have to be done right, and anything extra you have, please compost it. And then just simply write down. And listen, all knife work, 2 things you need to know about knife work. 1, the more you do it, guys, the better you'll get at it. Secondly, if you don't have a sharp knife, don't bother. Stay home. Okay, those are the 2 rules of learning knife skills. So look, bacon's in, and I'm gonna go right in with the onions, okay? And let them start melting with my bacon. And then, quickly, a jalapeno. Now at this point, I can do 1 of 2 things. I could add a splash of canola oil or avocado oil, something relatively healthy, to a dish made with cream and cheese. Or I could just let the bacon render out its fat, which is, I think, what we're gonna do. But if it doesn't have enough fat, we'll give it a tablespoon of avocado oil, which I have here. All right, so jalapeno, take the tip off. Now, if you know jalapenos, habaneros, all the spicy chilies, 2 tricks you need to know on Super Bowl, especially if you have older brothers like me that like to play tricks. These can be spicy, but here's the trick, guys. Number 1, after you're cutting, wash your hands, all right? Or put on a simple rubber glove. The spice inside all chilies is right here. It's in the seeds and it's in this vein. It's called capsicum, it's in there. It's anti-inflammatory, hurts like the dickens. Here's the trick. I'm sure you've seen TV shows where people eat hot chilies. This is all going to my compost, by the way. They eat hot chilies and then they drink milk. There's a reason. Reason is simple. The chemical in here, capsaicin, is fat soluble, not water soluble. So that means if you pound a beer or a glass of water, you're just making it worse. So the trick I always use with my brothers, when they fool me with this, and they do often, I use either a pat of butter or a little half and half, some ice cream, goes away like that, okay? That's the trick. Maybe you can win a Super Bowl bet eating the hottest chili. I don't know, just be careful. All right, again, real small dice. All right, now also, without those veins and seeds in there, as these jalapenos cook, they will actually mellow quite a bit, okay? So let me get these in there. And let's see what's going on. So bacon is starting to render off its fat. So this is our skillet. You can see it gets hot really fast. I could use the metal spoon in it. I grew up with one of these. Mom had one. It was this old, weird 60s colored electric thing. It would burn the pancakes, burn the heck out of everything. I hated it. Anyway, that's that. So, jalapenos, onion on the side. A couple more ingredients. 1, it's not queso fundido unless you have chorizo. Now, there's a couple different types of chorizo. 1, closely associated with Spanish cooking, it's almost like a salami or pepperoni. It's made from large cuts of meat and fat. It's in a casing, it's cured, so it's very firm. You can slice it, all right? That's one type of chorizo. The other type of chorizo, this is a Mexican style. It's very popular here outside of Chicago and in Chicago. And you're gonna see when I cut this open, very simply, it's very soft. This is the style we use here in the Latino community here in Chicago. And all I'm gonna do is just squeeze it right out of its casing. This has been highly spiced pork, and I'm gonna brown this off. Now, as this browns off, we'll get ready to do 2 more things when we come back. We're gonna make a roux. A roux is just a classic mix of equal parts fat and flour. In this case, we're using good Irish butter, some flour. We're gonna melt it together, make a thick paste, add the milk. That is the base for our cheese sauce. It's called the Bechamel. So roux plus milk is Bechamel. And then we have two different types of fantastic cheese. We have a local chihuahua cheese, actually made up here in Wisconsin, not far from us. And chihuahua cheese is basically a farm cheese. It originates in Mexico. And then we have a shredded jalapeno jack from Monterey, California. And this is gonna be the basis for this amazing Queso Fundido. And also in our 6-quart brio, which I know you guys are looking at over here, we made homemade tortilla chips to dip. As soon as we come back, we're gonna finish this dish. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so look, we're gonna finish this amazing Mexican dish called Queso Fundido. So what I did was, I cooked off the jalapeno, onion, and the chorizo, and I like to take it out while I build my sauce. So basically the sauce we're building, and this is very hot, basically the sauce we're building here is called a bechamel, right? Italian, we call it bechamella. There's other words for it, but it's a classic base sauce for many dishes and many cultures. And basically what we wanna do is add equal parts by weight, fat to flour. So you can see I have butter here. All right, so this is actually gonna make about 4 ounces of roux. And what I'm looking for here is something that looks like wet sand. So we don't want super thick paste, but we want something that looks like wet sand. Now, just so I don't confuse anybody, there is an easy school of thought that says after I cook the onions and the chorizo and jalapeno, then I can go ahead and add some butter, add the flour, and make the bechamel or make the roux with the vegetables in it. Me, it's a personal preference. I just don't like to do it this way. All right, you want to make sure all this white flour is incorporated with the fat. So we don't have any fat laying about or any flour. And now it's going to be lumpy as heck at this time, but I'm going to show you a trick. The longer you cook this, the more toastier it'll get. It'll actually get a nutty flavor. And if you know anything about New Orleans cooking, a good gumbo always starts with a brown roux. That means they cook it until it's as dark as shoe leather, right? All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my milk. And you're going to see this lump up and clump up, and the chef's going to make a mess. That's okay, because what's going to happen is I use the hot roux, which was already in here, roux, again, flour and butter, with cold milk. And that's going to help me eliminate all these lumps. And you're going to see how fast, from this point, the dish actually comes together. So we make sure we keep stirring. And it takes a minute, it takes a little patience. Super Bowl Sunday, a good time for a Super Bowl Sunday craft beer. And you're gonna see how thick and how fast this gets. And what we're gonna do next is we're gonna come back, we're gonna add the cheese, and I'm gonna show you how to finish Queso Fundido. So, I've got my bechamel built. I have my chorizo browned off with beautiful red onions and a little bit of jalapeno. There's a couple things you have to know. One, the way I make my Queso Fundido, I like to mix this in with the cheese. Many times you get in a Spanish restaurant, you have a layer of cheese melted over the top and it's thick, but it's like, to me, it's like melted cheese, but this is more of a dip. We can also take some of our cooked chorizo, beautiful red onion and jalapeno, and just hide it in the bottom, right? And then pour the cheese sauce, which we're gonna finish building, over this, and then this becomes basically a surprise. You could also serve this easily on the side, or you could add it here. So the bechamel, roux, milk, it's starting to thicken up. We're almost done. You can see all the lumps have gone away, so it does take a little stirring. And always when you make a bechamel, you gotta bring it up to a boil at least once. That cooks out the flour, otherwise it's gonna taste pasty, right? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this, and just to have some fun, I'm gonna put a little bit in here. I'm gonna put all of it in there, how about that? That goes there. All right, now we're working with something. Look at all the fat coming off the chorizo, jalapenos in there. Now watch how easy this is. Let's go with half of my chihuahua, half of my peppered Monterey Jack, and see where we're at. And if I need more cheese, I have more cheese. If I want to serve it on the side, I can. And all I do right now is slowly mix this in and let that cheese get nice and cozy with my bechamel. You just learned how to make a classic cheese sauce in French cuisine, Italian cuisine. You start with the roux, you add the milk, you bring that up, make sure there's no lumps, let it boil, and then you add cheese. I mean, this is actually the basis for classic Mornay sauce. But you can see what I'm looking for is a little stretch, right? So let's get this going. Now at this point, this is important to know too. See, starting to bubble? That's good if you're here controlling it. But if you walk away and this boils hard, you run the risk of this separating or splitting, and that's because cheese has a lot of fat in it, and if it gets too hot, it'll break. So what I do is simple. Digital temperature control from the NuWave medley. We drop this down to about 140. Just let it hang out. Now, so two things you have to decide for your soup bowl guests and your family, your loved ones. This is an amazing, amazing dip right now. Could I make it thicker? Absolutely, we can make it thicker. I'm gonna let this simmer for a second, and I think our guys here in the studio are gonna want it like this as a dip. But if I add the rest of this cheese, it will get really thick. But I think it's hard to put on the nachos or the tortillas. And what we did is, let me give it a little black pepper. And there's no salt in here. And I'll tell you why, is because the chorizo itself is made with salt and the cheese has salt in it. And I don't want to make it over salty, right? You don't want people drinking all your beer. Okay, so that's that. Put these on the side for now, guys. And again, if you want more cheese, you knock yourself out. This, you know, is cilantro, right? Common in Southeast Asia, very common in Mexico, and I just want to lightly chop it. I don't do this thing where I see chefs on videos, you know, pounding the heck out of their parsley and their cilantro, making this powder. I don't get it. It's an herb. I want to see it. I just basically what I'm doing is bruising it up a little bit to let what's inside of it come out and it gets more fragrant. But I'm okay if a little cilantro gets stuck in my teeth on Soup Bowl Sunday. Big handful, right in. You want to sprinkle some around here, go right ahead, okay? Okay, and then last but not least, one more treat for you guys. We have in Chicago such a wonderful Latino community, and there's actually a couple of places that actually make very famous tortillas. Tortillas maíz, which is from corn, and tortillas harina, which is from flour. But when I make my chips, my tortilla chips or my nacho chips, always make them from white corn. You can use yellow corn, obviously. So what we have here, 6-quart Brio air fryer. I just toasted them up. Look at this. So these are gonna come out. Now let's get to plate. Get my cilantro out of the way, green onions. Let's just put a couple of these beauties in here. Now this is Soup Bowl 2018. These are homemade, local tortilla chips from right here in Chicago. Wonderful, wonderful little company. Does a lot in the community. We like them. They're very nice to us. Okay, so that's that. Tuck this guy away. Easy cleanup, easy storage. So we have this. Also, I didn't show you the lid. So now I'd lower this to 145. That means it's not going to boil. It's not going to burn, but it's going to hold at a perfect temperature that will be safe and bacteria won't grow. So let me plate a little bit of this just around this guy. I'm gonna make a mess. You know what? I don't care. Here we go. Now this can go on a small cocktail table for a couple of guests. This can stay on the buffet with some other foods that you have laid out in the medley, and people can just come out and help themselves on a plate. But this is it. Queso Fundido, chihuahua cheese with chorizo, homemade tortilla chips, and this is Super Bowl 2018. Thanks for being with us again.